This podcast is sponsored by Prime Movement. Prime Movement is for people who want to return to training after an injury, learn how to manage musculoskeletal issues while training, or who want to begin training but are not sure how to get started. They provide a whole systems approach to care. You can work one-on-one for an hour with their clinicians to determine an individualized treatment plan that will get to the root cause of your pain or dysfunction, and then apply principles of both physical therapy and strength conditioning to build a stronger system to keep your issues from returning. For a free consultation, follow the link in the show notes and get one scheduled today. This podcast is sponsored by Big Game Wrestling Club in North Liberty. The club is led by head coach Dylan Carew and is assisted by his brother Tyler Carew. He also includes additional coaches Tyler Clark, Jesse Whitmer, and Coach Tom Lepic. The club recently opened a new facility just outside of North Liberty, the Tom Lepic Wrestling Complex. Classes are held for beginners, youth, middle school, high school. All ages can come out to Big Game Wrestling Club and train. They have a sauna, full workout facility between cardio, weight training, MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They really got it all out there at Big Game. So if you want more information, you can search Big Game Wrestling Club on Facebook or at Big Game WR on Twitter and Instagram. You can also email Coach Carew at dcarew103@yahoo.com.
Hey, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Wrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Wrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Potentially Dangerous. I'm your host, Ross Bartachek, and joining me on today's episode is Lars Underbakke. Lars, how you doing?
Living the dream, man. Ready for another week.
Ready for another week. I mean, lots happened in the wrestling world, that's for sure. We met up this weekend, though. We headed out just in my neck of the woods. You actually came up, I guess, and we went over to Big Game Wrestling Club's opening of their, I guess it was their grand opening of the new facility, the Tom Lepic Wrestling Complex, just outside of North Liberty, and we do want to give them a quick shout out for being a show sponsor, site sponsors. But what are your overall impressions of the Tom Lepic Wrestling Complex?
Pretty impressive. I love it. For a club, to have that kind of facility is just crazy. Just everything they've done with it. You saw it. They have really big sauna, custom made, just incredible. They've got really nice locker rooms. They put in really nice wood lockers for all the kids. It's got TVs in there. Separate guys and girls locker rooms, showers. They have a full gear store they're going to have in front. So he's got a whole bunch of gear coming in, new gear coming in. He's going to have a storefront basically as you walk in. And then upstairs, there's two workout rooms really. There's like a cardio on one side, there's weights on the other side, and then just this big old mat area. It's got a ton of little circles. I'm not sure exactly how many mats you could fit in there, but to me, I would say it's like 4 full-size mats. I mean, they can get a lot of kids in there, and they're not even really getting very close to each other. So just a really impressive facility, and it's cool to see clubs in Iowa getting that kind of love and that kind of facilities to help these kids.
Yeah, obviously he's Dylan Carew's the head coach, and he's got quite a crew helping him out. He's got his brother Tyler. There's Jesse Whitmer, big former NCAA champ, Tyler Clark, Bettendorf wrestled at Iowa State and Iowa. Nate Moore helps out with the club, head coach at Iowa City West. I mean, those are some big names right there. And then, of course, it kind of helps. I see it all the time. He's had through his connections, he's had quite a few good college coaches roll through too. So he's definitely got a good thing going there. I kind of like it how they have their membership set up that, the dads, or I guess the moms too, when they're there, they can just like, you can get a membership to work out. Like you said, there's cardio, there's weight training, and then there's the sauna. I mean, if you're somebody and you're dropping your kid off at practice, and you don't really want to watch your kid drill for an hour or whatever, just go hang out in the sauna. That doesn't sound like a bad night for me.
Right. I think it's amazing. I've started taking my kid up there a few times. He's been to just a few practices, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm kind of excited to go try that sauna out in that workout room a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll probably be back on the podcast to give an update on how the sauna room is.
That's right.
There were some other things, of course, taking place this weekend. So that the grand opening was on Sunday, and the other big, Iowa-related news was probably Wyatt Henson, the Iowa commit, Missouri prep, wrestling out at the Clarion Open. Lars, did you get a chance to see it, or kind of look back at the results for Wyatt and how he did out there?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't able to watch, but I was able to go back through and look through some results. Maybe it wasn't the top college competition, but for him to go out there, get third, he picked up some big wins. I think he had a fall or two on the backside. Just a really good tournament, and he lost, first round to the number one seed, I think, 6-4. Comes all the way back to wrestle. Would have been the same kid, I think, for third and fourth. I don't know if the guy got hurt, didn't want to wrestle him, what the reason was, but he didn't step back on the mat even with Henson the second time. So just a real strong showing. I've seen him limited, even live. Kind of wondered just how good he was, but I think that seeing him do that on the collegiate level just proves how good this kid's going to be.
I saw his major decision, and his first match he won was by fall. And obviously by the scores you can tell he did a lot of his wrestling on top with a pin, and then with a 12-1. It's pretty lopsided. Pretty obvious it came from near fall and turning. But that's just that much more impressive for a high school junior to go out against college competition. One of those guys was a Division I wrestler. I'm not sure where Shippensburg, if that's D2. But, he goes out there and he's able to turn guys already. I mean, he's probably only going to get better, right? So I didn't really get a whole lot of opportunity to see him on bottom. But that's probably the biggest area you're kind of worried about guys. And he said, the biggest thing he felt when wrestling those guys was how strong they are. So he's like, right now, they got grown man strength, and that's probably their biggest advantage against me. But now that I felt that, I know what I need to do to go and get some work. And he says the things you need to hear from a guy that's trying to get better. He said, it's a 7-minute match. That's way different than high school. So he's like, I got to start wrestling longer matches in practice to get ready. But I just thought, just talking to him after that tournament, he had all the right takeaways. He wasn't too hard on himself for taking the loss he did. And he had a good mindset on it, which I thought was really interesting too.
Yeah, and he's been around his dad a lot. He's been coached up. His dad was obviously a great wrestler. He's college coach, so he's been around that atmosphere. He knows what it's going to take at the next level, and he knows, what he needs to say, what kind of mindset he needs to go in with. So I definitely thought that was pretty cool to see him compete, see him do well, and makes me excited to see him join the Hawkeyes next year.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of Wyatt Henson, we could kind of transition into his new classmate, Colorado state champion Cam Lucero. He gave his verbal commitment. Was that like Monday morning? Maybe it was Sunday night. That could have happened on Sunday too.
I think it might have been Sunday, yeah.
Because I remember waking up early Monday and I was like, oh, okay, so this happened. All right. Now I was not expecting this commitment to come, but what do you know anything about Cam? I mean, do you know a whole lot?
Pretty minimal, pretty much what we put in our article, stuff like that. He won state last year, had a great record. Does have quite a bit of experience, it looks like, in freestyle and Greco too, which is good to see. And some people might think Colorado, don't know much about it. If you haven't paid much attention, Colorado's really, really improved. That's a really strong wrestling state these days. So for him to win a state title and stick out in Colorado, I think is a good sign. I definitely haven't really seen a lot of him, haven't had a chance to go back and watch a video yet. But to me, the more interesting part is the fact that he's, right in that same range we've been talking about of all these kids they're getting at 41, 49, 57. They just seem to be really loading in those weights. So kind of interesting to see another one there. I know they're still recruiting Caleb Rathje as well. So, kind of makes you wonder how much room there really is.
I'm kind of like you, where I haven't seen any video on him to make a comment. I just know he's a state champ and he was a state runner-up the year before. And I do think it was, I think it's the one telling thing would probably be Iowa brought out, they had their big recruiting weekend, and Cam was one of the guys they brought out. Trying to think, him, Ayala, Henson, and Rachi were the only juniors, I want to say. So I mean, it's pretty telling. I mean, I know he's not ranked, but Iowa obviously sees something there. You talk about where he slides in weight wise, so that'll be a question. And I don't really know what his upside is without really watching him or kind of getting any feel on him. So I guess it'll be something to look forward to. Kind of give us something to scout, but it's definitely interesting that Iowa obviously sees something in him to bring him in on that big weekend. They give him enough attention. I know he had a home visit just before he committed, like in September. I think either Tom or Terry was out there. I didn't really go through his photos that much, but to see which one it was. But I thought that was it's an interesting get. We'll see how that one develops. Do you want to move on to the other two commitments that just kind of popped up really recently? I feel like you have the better inside scoop on the gritty details on those.
Yeah, a couple really good in-state commits. Grandview just continues to roll. Seems like they just keep picking up really good commitments. Sage Walker to me is kind of sneaky commit. I think at times maybe has gotten overlooked in some ways. So he's a two-time state place winner. He didn't finish the year he wanted to his first couple years, but then last year came on strong, was a state runner-up. And then people forget, not this last summer he was injured after last season, but the summer before, he was a Fargo All-American. So this kid's got a pedigree. He's ultra talented, always has been, and he's just grown a ton. But he's really filling into that, 182. Look for him to be a 184 pounder. I think it's just a great commit for Grandview, great fit. And then Gabe Lewis, the always dangerous Gabe Lewis. We've talked about him a lot, even with Night of Conflict. He had a huge win out at Night of Conflict over two-time runner-up Gino Bana. It's never been a question of Gabe's talent. Really talented. Sometimes he's maybe gotten himself in trouble taking chances. He maybe hasn't, had the state tournaments he's, wanted, but, he had a decent amount of D1 interest. He chose them over a few D1 schools, things like that. So coaches obviously see a lot in him as well. And I really think both these guys have an extremely high ceiling to me.
I would definitely say I'm more familiar with Walker. I mean, I don't really get down into the high school as deep as, some of our rankers like you do. But so I'm more familiar with Walker, and I've seen, I know the name Lewis, but I've never really watched him a ton. I haven't gotten out to see him. But, I mean, obviously there are guys that are in our Fab 50, as of this last month. I don't know how to put it, but Walker was one of the top remaining guys in the state available. Lewis was outside our top 7 available, but I mean, so it's two good gets by Grandview. Obviously, they're the championship program there in NAIA, so they got a pretty good staff to identify talent, and I think if they're going after these guys, they see something pretty special. So definitely excited to see how their careers pan out there in Des Moines. Do you think there's any other, major high school talents maybe looking to make a decision soon? I mean, I can't remember who's all left. I mean, there's Carson Taylor, Eli Lloyd. I'm trying to think of our other guys that are like up there on that uncommitted list. Do you think, any of these other guys are going to be making decisions before the school year starts? Or
Yeah, I expect a few. I think, from what I understand, I think Lloyd's closing in on a decision for sure. I would assume a few more will get, usually these couple weeks here right before the season starts seem to pick up quite a bit. We've seen it recently. Same thing last week we had a couple. This week there's a couple more. I would expect Lloyd to commit soon. And I don't know. I haven't heard for sure, but I'm kind of expecting, maybe we'll even get some decisions coming out of Ayala and Ratji and a couple of those guys in that next class as well.
I mean, we'll be looking forward to it. That's for sure. What else was there was some other big news that I kind of skipped over that happened first, and that was on Friday. This is something you're pretty plugged into as one of our lead high school analysts, the Dan Gable Donnybrook, something that we previewed on a previous podcast. That's the tournament that's going to be set up in 2020, December 2020, that is, with Josh Schomburger, Nate Eichhorst, Luke Eustace are the guys, that are really behind it. And it's going to be a 32-man, 32-team bracket. They're looking to do women's too. We'll see if we can get more details on what they do for the women. But they announced their first 4 men's teams. What can you tell us about those teams?
Yeah, so Linn-Mar is going to be one of the host schools. That's one school they went to right away, and they're going to lock up just a couple of more local schools to kind of be that host. So Linn-Mar is one of those. Always a solid program. They got a couple studs right now. Brandon O'Brien we've talked about at length. They got Tate Nackaborn's going to be a freshman this year. They got some kids, so they're going to be fun to watch. I think they're going to keep getting better. Apple Valley. I think anybody who follows high school wrestling knows Apple Valley. You got guys like Mark Hall, Seth Gross, all these guys coming through there. That's just a huge tradition. They're not going anywhere soon. They're always going to be good. So that's a really, really big national name to bring in off the top. Shakopee's been a really good program in Minnesota. They actually upset Apple Valley last year to win the state title, the team state title in Minnesota. So another strong Minnesota program. And then Canton, South Dakota. I don't know if too many people pay as much attention to South Dakota, but Canton's just a dynamic program out there. They won state last year. They're always, near the top. They got a couple studs back. Kellen March is their big stud right now. He's a 3-time state champ, trades Legends of Gold with Adam Allard and a lot of those guys out on that side of the state. So a lot of these guys are familiar with some of the Iowa boys as well. And then one of their coaches actually is from Iowa. Jeremy Ask was a real good wrestler in St. Ansgar back in the day. He was actually one of my freestyle coaches growing up. So bringing Canton, South Dakota in as well. So there was those 4. They're planning on releasing 4 more this Friday. And the way I understand is I think there'll be some girls teams being announced this week as well.
It's definitely building momentum, and that was one thing that, as soon as I saw Apple Valley was on there, I was like, okay, and I was writing up that release, and then it was like, Shakopee, and I was like, okay, and I was kind of looking up to see where they finished, and I was, obviously we're not plugged into Minnesota, but I mean, that one was what took me by surprise. I'm like, holy crap, this team beat Apple Valley last year. Like, I mean, I knew their names, so they've obviously produced some good guys for me to know that name, but holy cow, I mean, those are some pretty big headliners to come out first release. So
yeah, there's plenty more big names to come. They have quite a few teams lined up already. For the most part, it's pretty full. They're just kind of announcing a few at a time. The other big push right now is to try to get the rule removed of neighboring states. I know we've talked about it at different times of Iowa teams not really being able to leave and go outside of neighboring states. Same thing with getting teams to come in. This has hampered Independence a little bit. This is going to hamper the Donnybrook a little bit. It's definitely something they've been talking to the Athletic Association about. And I encourage, all coaches, athletic directors, anybody who would like to travel out of state or bring other teams in. This is something that can be pushed a little bit. They're aware of it. They're looking into the rule, and this is something that I think would be huge to get removed. I think, these kind of tournaments would be able to bring a lot better teams in, get better competition. It would also allow some of the Iowa schools to, again, travel to, better tournaments outside too. If there's a year, obviously, Waverly, Southeast Polk, Waukee, there's a lot of good schools there to go against each other, but they're not close to each other either. So some of them go to the Cheesehead or go to, near tournaments. But what if they were able to go to Ohio or wherever and get this great competition? It just opens up that many more doors and opportunities for these kids. So if teams are interested in that, there's definitely discussions going on. Let the Athletic Association know that's something that would be important to you to get that rule removed.
I always think back to more my era of high school, and I think it would have been cool to see like the West boys like go out when they were loaded with the Moore brothers crew, St. John, and Gamble. They all go out to like the Ironman tournament. How cool that would have been to see, now it's probably more like you said, Waverly, Southeast Polk that are built like that now. But that would definitely be cool to see some of those guys get to go out of state. And then for opportunities like the Donnybrook to bring in teams from maybe California, maybe bring in a Bergen Catholic, that'd be pretty cool. Just, go out and find another team that just is, they're not there just because they're a neighboring state trying to come to a big tournament.
Right. And the other thing is I know there's been some discussion about how the girls tournament's going to be run, different things. There is a plan. There is stuff in place. I'm not going to break this right now. I'll leave that up to iCourse as well, or we'll get it out at some point. But there are going to be some opportunities for girls from Iowa to be able to wrestle in this. I know it's not a sanctioned event right now, but stay tuned. This has been thought about at length, and there are going to be opportunities for girls from Iowa to wrestle in this event.
That's I probably won't say too much to not try and to tip that over. I think the bigger question is, these four big teams off the bat is I'm really interested to see, how this impacts the independence invite. Obviously that Minnesota's a school or state that they pull from quite a bit for their talent. I'll be interested to see with those two tournaments going head to head. I don't want to see the independence tournament go away. It's it's been good to us. We've seen some really good matches out of it. You were just talking earlier in this podcast about Wyatt Henson wrestling, Kobe Seabrook at it. So definitely interested to see. Do you have anything else you want to talk about on that?
Yeah, my understanding is there'll be just a couple teams that were switching over. Linn-Mar obviously is one of them. As a opportunity to be a host school at the Donnybrook was a big thing for them. So they're coming over. I think there might be one or two other teams, but for the most part, they tried to avoid that. They kind of went after some different schools as well. So there's no reason these can't coexist. Again, the more schools they have the ability to invite, be able to go farther out, the easier it'll be for both of these tournaments to be great at the same weekend. You know what I mean? So right now we're limited with just those neighboring states, but if that rule gets opened up, it's just going to keep opening up even more opportunities because there's a lot of teams out there that would love to get into Iowa and compete here.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like all those CIML schools in particular. It seems like they run into each other like 8 times a year, and then they wrestle at state. It's like, this is part 7 of this series, and it's only been this year. It's not like this has been going on for years. So it's just it's good to get a different, little bit, see some different matches that you're not going to see 100 times in a season.
For sure.
Yep. So there is going to be some college wrestling going on this weekend too. Last week that was something we talked about. It was pretty boring overall. The only college talk we had for upcoming was Wyatt Henson competing at the Clarion Open, for goodness sake. So this Thursday and Friday, Iowa's having Intra-Squad matches. Their social media account for the team stressed these are not wrestle-offs. They will be hosted in the Dan Gable Wrestling Complex at 3:30 p.m. on both Thursday and Friday. Lars, have you had a chance to take a look at the matches on days 1 and 2? And do you want to go through them there individually?
Yeah, we can. I think, you know what I mean, there's not a ton of really crazy, exciting matchups to me. We think the lineup's fairly set. The big thing here was Teasdale at 33, and looks like DeSanto's wrestling a 41-pounder. So, maybe that answers questions. Maybe it doesn't. I know there's, Gavin Teasdale is a crazy talent. If he's on the straight and narrow and he's ready to compete, I think, you kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit that maybe he's going to be the guy at 33. So him and Paul Glenn, Glenn's been around. He's a really good wrestler. He's a kind of guy that would start for probably 90% of the schools in D1 in my mind. He's a national qualifying caliber wrestler. So we'll see exactly where Teasdale's at. That's not going to be an easy match there. And then to see DeSanto and Aaron Meyer. So Aaron Meyer, I almost think of more as a 41 to 49 pounder. That's a pretty big jump for a DeSanto. So that's kind of interesting to see. The big question there is where's Max Mirren? Have you heard anything of why Mirren isn't competing?
No, I did see, he got bit by a cat at Media Day, though. So, I don't know, man. Spooky stuff going on Halloween. Maybe he's a werecat, not a werewolf. He's a werecat. I don't know. Is it a full moon? We'll have to see what's going on with Max. But, I think you talk about that Glenn Teasdale match. I think that one will be fun. You talk about, how seasoned Glenn is, and Teasdale hasn't wrestled a competitive official match in over a year. One thing I think will be funny is, Teasdale's so short and compact, and then you got a guy like Glenn that's, he came down from 41. He's so long and lanky. That'll just be a contrast of body styles there. The first match they're leading off with, if they're going in order of matches, which I believe they will, they got Aaron Cashman versus Spencer Lee. Obviously, everyone's going to be thinking Lee's going to roll because he rolls just about everybody. But I think the more interesting thing will be to see Cashman. He was really limited last year. And who knows? We can get into this a little bit later, but who knows what Spencer Lee's schedule looks like. So Aaron Cashman might be in the lineup quite a bit this year. And the other interesting one, on day one is that Carter Happel, Justin Stickley. That'll be a fun one, I think. Stickley kind of finally hitting his groove at 41. Happel's a guy that beat an All-American as a freshman in Carver. So, that's an incredible backup to have at 141. Were there any other matches on day one?
Nothing too crazy.
Kemmer's back.
They're doing the 4-man bracket at 49. You'd think Lugo and Turk win those matches. And then we'll get to see them on day 2, which would be fun. But you never know. We'll see what Seabrook Scott, the young kid, we talked about him winning Independence last year. It's a big one. So that'll be kind of interesting. Cassiope Costello. I think a lot of people are wondering just how good Cassiope is. Costello's tough, hard to score on. So we'll see what he can do there. Those are really the big ones for that day, I would think.
Yeah, I think they're kind of telegraphing it themselves. They got Axmere Lugo wrestling day 1, but they already have it announced that Axmere is wrestling Caleb Young. So, if they went in the order of matches they had and Axmere managed to win, he would have to wrestle the winner of match 5, Seabrook Turk, and then turn around and wrestle Caleb Young. So I think there's a little bit of telegraphing there on what's going to happen. Zach Glazier, the true freshman, is going to be wrestling Jacob Warner. I'm not sure how that one's going to go, but I think everyone's kind of interested to see what they got in Zach, because they brought in Abe Assad, who's he's going to be wrestling Cash Wilkie on day 2. A lot of people think Assad's going to be the 84-pounder. And they don't really have a direct heir right away for Jacob Warner. They don't know who it's going to be at 95. So, I'm just kind of more interested to see that's obviously going to be his intention, right, to go up to 95, because he's probably too big to go to 74. So just kind of see how he matches up with Jake Warner right now. I know he's got a whole year to get better while he's in redshirt. Lars, quit looking at me like that.
Well, no, I was shocked to see this matchup, because I never thought of Glazer being anywhere big enough to be a 97-pounder. I guess I've always thought of him more of, 84, maybe 74. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe he's thinking that direction. He's going to bulk up. I don't know. And then they also have Christensen coming in the next year. Gabe's got one more year of high school, but is he going to come in at 97? I've even heard some people question maybe Gabe Christensen turns into a heavyweight at the next level.
That's what I'm wondering.
So I'm not sure what the intention is there, but maybe they're thinking he'd get bigger and Glazier gets bigger into 97 as well. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see his size next to Warner and just how he matches up, I guess.
Yeah, so the day one, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have anybody there. I'm going to try and make it down for day two. My schedule looks a lot better for day two. And that's got the DeSanto Meyer match we talked about, which, I mean, that's another confusing thing is at media day, Tom Brands is like, DeSanto's got to get better on bottom because he's going to be wrestling Seth Gross. And here he is wrestling Aaron Meyer, and Teasdale looks like he's going 33 wrestling Glenn. So getting like mixed signals, and I'm sure it's very intentional confusion by head coach Tom Brands.
For sure.
He doesn't want you to know what he's thinking, so that's actually not surprising at all. So I guess that'll be one match that everybody's going to have circled. Go ahead.
Oh, I'd say the other one was Nelson Brands wrestling Jeremiah Moody. I know a lot of people have been questioning what weight's Nelson going to be. Is he going to wrestle off against Young, Marinelli, Kemmerer? I guess the answer is none of them. I don't know what the plan is there. Moody's wrestling Kemmerer on day one, who's a 74-pounder. He's wrestling Nelson on day two, which most people would consider a 65. There was talk of could he make 57? So I don't know what's going on there weight-wise, and then I guess, they just don't want to give it away. What's going on there? Why wouldn't Nelson get a shot to wrestle one of those top guys? Even if you wrestled Moody day one with a shot to wrestle Marinelli or Kemmerer, I don't know. I guess they'll save that for an open tournament somewhere or closed doors, but I thought that was kind of weird to see Nelson wrestling Moody and not one of those top guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when or if we would get any sort of match like that, and I don't know if Nelson will be used as kind of like the backup. I mean, he could maybe kind of do like what Caleb Young did, was that his freshman year, where he was there at 65, he was there at 74. He filled in at the early season when Marinelli was out, and they went up to 74 to wrestle off with Gunther. So, I mean, maybe that's what the Nelson Brands plan is this year. Because you're right, he doesn't get any matches with one of those top guys, and it's almost like they're saving those juicy matchups for not the public.
Right. Marinelli's wrestling Joe Kelly, who's a freshman 57-pounder. I love me some Joe Kelly, as you know. He's from my town, but he, didn't win a state title. Really solid kid, but he's more of a 57-pounder. He's freshman, so probably not going to challenge Marinelli right now.
Not very many people can, though, so to be
not
fair.
not many people can, but Nelson Brand's the kind of guy that could give him a match. So I don't know what the thinking exactly is. That's not for me to know, I guess, at this point. But that one just kind of stood out to me that they weren't giving Nelson any of those big matchups.
Yeah. And the other big one on that day, so it's DeSanto Meyer, and then everyone's going to be looking at that Abe Assad Wilkie we talked about. Assad's probably going to be the heir apparent to Wilkie. I feel like this feels eerily similar to, what was that? Would have been Wilkie's sophomore year. So Jacob Warner was a true freshman, and that wrestle off were those two, and you were like, man, is Warner going to win? Is he going to be the guy? And so I feel like I have that feeling where everybody's really high on Assad. Those dang Illinois Greco freestyle boys give us that same feeling where, love Cash. He's solid. He's just been right outside the podium the last 3 years, but I kind of just get that feeling it's going to be a tight match with those two. I mean, familiarity is everything with Cash, I feel like. So that could be a match that, even if Assad wins, it really doesn't tell us probably anything, but it'll be fun to watch, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
The other I kind of want to use this as our transition point because it was the breaking news of the wrestling world on Wednesday was Jaden Eierman announced that I guess Flo broke the news that he's in the transfer portal. So I don't know if Eierman broke it or how. I don't know how Flo figured that out. But anyway, Eierman's in the transfer portal, and then he interviews with Bader later in the day, telling him, "I know exactly where I want to go," and he's all cheeky about, he knows where he wants to go. Obviously, he's not going to say anything till it's a done deal. But what do you make of this news, Lars?
I just think it's weird. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, all these kids entering the transfer portal. I don't know. It just seems weird. He's going to be a senior. He grew up in Missouri. His, I guess, father, stepfather, whatever he is, coach Jaden Cox. Like, there's just so many connections to Mizzou, to the program, to everything. Why is he now looking, and he's been successful there. It's not like he hasn't gotten where he wants. It's not like the team hasn't been good. What's making him want to transfer for his last year of college? He's got one more year. I don't know. I mean, it makes you wonder if he's looking for a better freestyle situation. You know what I mean? Does he not think he can reach those goals at Missouri post-collegiate? He wants to get somewhere and get settled in for that. I don't know. It seems really odd to me, the timing of it, right before the year. I know he's redshirting, but it's still, the year's already going. So is he going to transfer now? Does he have to finish the year where he's at? There's just a lot of questions to it, and just everything that's been going on lately. I don't know, this whole portal thing, it just seems crazy to me at this point. Anybody can enter their name, and it's like you can just be recruited all over again, but then you can still go back to the school.
Well, so when you put your name in the portal, you pretty much forfeit your financial aid. So the school is no longer, they can cut you off right then and there, and they're not beholden to bring you back. So, I mean, that's what you're risking by putting your name in the portal. You can pretty much get any scholarship money you do have pulled. But, I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be a done deal that you leave, so they can, retain you. But basically, and I guess it's year to year with wrestling anyway, right? So you're not guaranteed to be.
And you're going to say that Brian Smith isn't going to give Jaden Eierman a shot to come back and give him a scholarship.
Right.
You know what I mean? That good of a kid. It's different if it's a walk-on that's in freshman. You're not just going to pull Jaden Eierman's scholarship and say you can't come back.
Well, right. But I mean, that's what happens, right? You mean, when you enter that portal, you can be recruited, but at the same time, it just means that, this school doesn't owe you anything anymore, man. So, I think he did say that he's looking to set himself up for an RTC situation, kind of reading the comments, read between the lines. And I dug up an article from the Columbia Tribune. When he committed, he said, I think he said he picked Mizzou over Penn State and Nebraska. But when they interviewed his coach, the coach said, he was getting looks from Penn State and Iowa. And I think there was also, the team he wants to go to now is a team he's always kind of wanted to wrestle for, which, I mean, it's also a little confusing because when he committed to Missouri, that was the talk, is he always wanted to wrestle for Missouri. So I guess he kind of always wanted to wrestle for two programs. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, but I just don't really know how to read into these comments anymore. But, obviously Iowa was on the table, though, when he committed, and he's looking at a school that he was interested when he was being recruited. So, the big names are obviously Penn State, Nebraska, Iowa, and then before that, these comments came out in the Bader interview. I didn't know if Iowa State would be in play because I could imagine that they would love to have Jaden and Mike Eierman, around their program, especially with, like you said, what Mike's been able to do developing Jaden. To have that kind of experience developing there at Iowa State would be big, but I don't know if that's going to be in the cards. But
it'd be interesting to see how it plays out, and I don't know that Iowa has an immediate need at 41, but the kicker there is, say Teasdale wrestles 33 going forward. DeSanta wrestles 41 this year. Can he redshirt next year? And Eierman steps in for a year.
Well, yeah, and who's to say that, Teasdale, he's listed as a redshirt freshman right now, right? But who's to say they can't get, Iowa isn't appealing to get his year back, and they could redshirt either one next year. I mean, theoretically, They could have both redshirts for those guys. It doesn't even necessarily have to be DeSanto. So,
right.
I mean, that's another crazy thing is, it's just, there's a lot of unknowns. And so if it is Iowa, it could be that. I feel like Penn State feels like a reach with having Zane there already. I mean, would you really go into a program, wrestle a year? They have Nick Lee there too. Do you really go there and they have the guy that is the world team member right now, and that's the RTC you want to go to? I mean, I guess I don't really know, but so I really feel, just gut feeling, I'm saying Iowa and Nebraska kind of seem like two obvious logical choices for him right now.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
All right, well, I guess we'll see what comes of it. Do you wanna talk about the Harold Nichols Open here?
Yeah, I'm just excited to get the season started, man. I know, there was some competitions last week, some duels, things like that, but really we haven't seen our Iowa teams yet, the D1 Iowa teams. So Harold Nichols is going to be great. UNI and Iowa State, along with a bunch of other schools. So really excited for that. There's obviously some good storylines for both schools as well. One of the things I'm most excited to see is I really am hoping to see Schwarm and Biscaglia at 25. I want to see these guys get after it. I think that's one of the more interesting weights in the state right now for all three schools. I think that's a really big one for me. Schwarm's coming back off of, I think he had 2 wins at Nationals last year. He's ranked high. He's got a ton of experience. We saw Biscaglia have a great tournament as a true freshman at Midlands. We know what he's capable of as well. And really big difference in styles. So I just think it'd be a fun match regardless, and, could go a long way towards who's the starter for UNI. So that, to me, is a really, really big story in just UNI's young guys in general. Is Blockus really ready for this spotlight? Is Drew Bennett ready to take the spot at 33? There's just a lot of questions there as well. So everybody's been excited about those young guys, and it's time for them to strap it up and see what they got.
Yeah, that's those 3 guys definitely would be tested. And then there's, of course, the first test we'll see of Steyert and Lujan at their new weights. And if Steyert can, get a match with Coleman, Coleman 1 and 2 at the tournament. So obviously probably going to favor Steyert because he's, more well-rounded, got, better finished product, I guess. And then Lujan is a guy that's been knocking on the door of the podium. And now he's coming up, and he's going up against bigger guys. And Colbray was a guy that was round of 12. So those are 2 really big, could be really good in-state matches to have. And then obviously the Iowa State duel happens this month too. So it'd just be really cool to see UNI face both their in-state competition in the same month. And I think Nick Ryder posted UNI who they're sending. Looks like pretty much everyone. Lance Runyon wasn't on that track wrestling list he posted, but I do know Lance is going for sure. I talked to him. And then I'm pretty sure Iowa State is sending everybody from what it sounds like. So I don't think anybody's really being held out unless they're a known injury.
Right. Could we see Dugan and Shapiro this weekend? Possibly. We didn't really get to see them at Wrestlehouse for Iowa State. What's that?
I said, God, I hope so.
Right. Hopefully we get to see that one, see how that shakes out. And same thing for Iowa State. Most of their young guys are going to redshirt, but it'd be fun to see your Brodersons and Aiden Reeves and some of those guys compete as well and see, exactly where they're at matching up. Another one that I'm interested to see, I was talking to somebody this morning, Boone McDermott at Iowa Central was a big recruit out of high school, didn't qualify, went the JUCO route, I know he's looking at some D1 schools. There's some interest from some D1 schools. This is the year for him to prove himself. I know he's planning on being at the Nichols. So to me, that's one kind of off the beaten path, but that's one that I'll be watching to see how Boone does. And, can he wrestle some D1 competition? What about Boone and Gannon Gremmel, or Boone and Carter Isley? Let's see where he really stacks up, see where his recruiting is going to take him. That's a really big opportunity for a guy like that as well.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about Boone today because, he was, like you said, he's one of those bigger name guys. Was he nationally ranked in the top 20 by the time he...
Yep.
And then he went to... Iowa Central is obviously not like a nobody junior college. It's one of the junior college programs. So, do you remember who else like he was looking at, Division I wise? Do you even...
Yeah, I know there was a lot of interest at the time from like South Dakota State was one of them for sure. If I remember right, I think like Nebraska, Iowa State, a few schools like that were definitely looking at them at the time. So it'll be interesting. I've heard some other names. I think Oregon State's been kicking the tires a little bit on them for next year. Some different schools like that as well. So I know there's some interest there. As long as he has a good year this year and there's a full qualifier coming out.
Yeah, so that'll definitely be interesting. It's so hard to preview an open tournament and not know how these matches are going to set up and who's going to send their red shirts up. And last year I didn't see Brock Mahler coming out of nowhere and didn't see David Carr losing at this tournament. So it's kind of really hard to figure out what matches we're looking forward to, but we definitely named a lot of the top guys. Is there anybody else though that you can think of that? Obviously there's the 57 situation for you and I. They talked about, Schwab talked about Gertz and Holschlag, Derek Holschlag, pushing Peyton Moore at 57. So that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Keegan Moore, I don't know if I saw if he was in Nick's list. Just to see where he's at. Obviously, he'll probably be backing up Lujan. I feel like he's an 84-pounder, so... but even having him in that mix there it'll be fun. Maybe it'll be an all UNI final with those two guys. So,
well, I think they're gonna have a guy by the name of David Carr to compete with at 57, so that one could be tough.
Oh, no, sorry, I was talking about 84 Lujan.
Oh, sorry, I was like, what?
Lujan and Moore going.
Lujan Moore, yeah, that could be interesting. But David Carr is another name. I'm just excited to see him, strap up the old Cardinal and Gold and in real competition. I'm not sure who will be there for him, to face. That'll be, real stiff competition, but it'll just be fun to see him in the Iowa State singlet, against other schools. We've got to see him a little bit at the Intra-Squad, but this is a whole new ball game now. And, I think Iowa State fans have been waiting a long time for this one.
And speaking of, freshmen that people are really anticipating, did we talk about Reeves and Broderson? I know that. Yeah. Okay. As I was gonna say, they wrestle at Cardinal and Gold, but I guess I didn't know with like Reeves. He's only been cleared for like a month. Is he gonna go out and wrestle a whole Open? I guess we could probably just ask him, but
for sure. And Broderson really gave Colbray a pretty good match in that Inter-Squad as well. So is that a familiarity thing? Is there something else to it? There's Broderson just that ready to roll right now. He took a guy from the round of 12 into a real tight match. So it'd be interesting. Maybe Broderson comes out, has another great showing and, proves that he's just kind of ready to roll and develop and be the guy next year. We'll see.
Yeah, now I'm really nervous when I said it's going to be an all UNI final at 84 if Broderson's just going to totally blow me up. like totally make me look like an idiot. Yeah, so I think those two are... All right, I guess those two teams are probably going to run the show. I don't know if there's any, is any other squad, any other team sending their full squad? I don't think so. Missouri might.
Not that I'm aware of anyway. I don't think they've really released, any other teams have really released who they're bringing, so it's hard to know. Yeah, just who they're going to bring.
Well, those were my main topics, Lars. So is there anything else in the wild world of Iowa wrestling that you have to bring up? I think those are really Q&As that we got?
Yeah, we had just a few questions on Twitter, but I think those are the main topics there for this week. We got a question about DeSanto, Teasdale, obviously 33-41. What about Mirren? We touched on that a little bit. I have been hearing more and more, and the Rustloffs seem to indicate the same, that, Teasdale just looks phenomenal right now, has been doing all the right things since he's been there, and seems to be the guy at 33. I think you're going to see DeSanto go up to 41, and him and Mirren are going to have to battle it out to figure out what's going on. We'll go from there. I don't know why Mirren's not wrestling this week, so that kind of throws a wrench in it, but I think both guys will get some opportunity, and we'll see who steps up.